You want to be able to record killer tracks at home without having to empty your wallet? Well, you're in the right place. I'm Twisty, and in this video, I'm going to show you how I record my bass at home using Reaper and my Line 6 Helix. Let's check it out. Now, the ability to record your bass at home is a game changer. Now, whether you are trying to record your next greatest hit or some demo songs to send to your mates when you're writing, or rehearsing and want to hear how you're sounding back, or creating some bass sounds for YouTube, being able to record in your own home studio at a fairly reasonable price is a game changer. Now, setting up your home studio can be daunting. There's talk of interfaces, preamps, DIs, plugins, etc. But it doesn't have to be that complicated or that expensive. In 2025, you don't actually need a fancy studio to get really good results. Now, you are going to need a few things. So obviously you're going to need a bass, and you're going to need a computer, and you need some form of interface. If you search the internet for budget recording interfaces, you're usually going to find a stack of them from, Solid State Logic or Focusrite or PreSonus or Motu, etc. There's also a number of really expensive ones from UAD Audio and others. Since the COVID pandemic, and we're now in the podcast pandemic where everybody except for me apparently is doing a podcast, there's a stack of these low cost interfaces mainly designed around vocals for the podcasting. But they also do have an interface to connect your bass directly to it. So any of them will be good. But since you're watching this video, it's most likely you've got a Helix, a Floor, an LT, a HX Stomp. So we're going to use that as the interface. It means I don't have to go and buy another interface. I can use the same gear live as I do at home. Now, because I do a lot of recording at home and want a fly rig for gigs, I personally separated it. My HX Stomp is my gig rig, and my LT is my home recording studio. But both will be interchangeable. So I'm going to be using the LT, but it could be swapped out for a HX Stomp or a Floor. If you've got a Quad Cortex or a Toemaster Pro, it will be a similar process, but I'm not familiar with their recording capability, so I'm going to talk about the Helix. Now, apart from saving you money, the Helix is also good because it has zero latency. As you play, what you play, you hear instantly. There's no delay. You've already got the killer tones that you set up. What you set up in your HX will be exactly what's recorded to virtual tape or to disk. And the bonus event is that you can record both wet and dry signals. So not only the sound that you like coming out of your HX, but also a dry DI signal that can be used for reamping, or a lot of engineers like to have that clean signal to blend in as well. So it gives you the options. So you've recorded your bass track and all of a sudden you go, you know what? I really should have added delay, or I really didn't like that. Maybe we should have used a Gunning-Kruger. Stick with the Ampegs. Or, like in the video I've got up here, you might have used that Acoustic 360. That sounded pretty cool, actually. So all you need to do to make this into an interface is you've probably already got it connected via USB to the computer that you're using for HX Edit. So use that, and then also stick either some headphones into the side or plug your studio monitors in the back to be able to hear it. For the DAW, or digital audio workstation, I'm going to use Reaper. It's insanely affordable. At $60 US for a lifetime license, it's less than for a decent pedal. It's powerful and flexible, so it will handle pro-like capability. But since we're probably just going to be doing the recording side, then it's more than sufficient. If you check out some of the other playlists in my channel, you'll see I've done full recording and mixing using Reaper. And it's easy to learn. I'm going to show you some quick basics to set up how to record, but if you look at this link above for Kenny Goya, he's got a stack load of education on how to do anything that you want to do with Reaper. Now there's a number of other DAWs in the market like Pro Tools and Logic and Ableton that you could use, Cubase. And every search on the internet will have a religious debate on which one's going to be better for you and not. However, I've used Pro Tools in the past, and the thing that got me was the increasing annual license fee that I had to go with it for the amount of functional use I had out of it compared to what I was paying for. I got really tired of paying that. Reaper, as I said, 60 bucks, pretty good. Now, if you've got a Mac, Logic is good. It's a single license, but again, it's a couple of $100 for a license as opposed to $60, and you have to use a Mac. One of the biggest benefits of Reaper, apart from the cost and its functionality, is also that it's multi-platform. So if you've got a Windows machine, you can use it. If you've got a Mac, you can use it. If you're still in the 90s and you're using a Linux machine, you can use it. The only thing you can't use with it is an iPad. But line 6, there's no HX Edit software on the iPad either. So let's go and have a look at the content. All right, so the first we're going to look at is the interface itself. So like most DAWs, it's got a track level, it's got a waveform section, it's got a mixer section, and it's got a master mixer. I also have transport controls, so play, record, stop, pause, etc., etc. I can set the beats per minute and the time signature and a whole bunch of other stuff, which I'm not going to go into in this video, but if you need me to or you'd like me to, I can in a future video. Or as I said, check out some of Goya's. They're really, really helpful. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to make the LT the interface. So if I go to Reaper's settings, if I check under audio devices, I've got Helix audio. Now I have a few different things. So I've got the Element 46 from Apogee, but I've got that. I'm picking 4800 as the sample rate because that's what I need to have to match the Helix. And I'm setting the block size for 2048. That's pretty well all you need to do to set up the Reaper side of it. Now on the LT side, what we're looking for is in the global settings, look for the ins and outs. And from there, we want to make sure that we have the sample rate set to 48 kilohertz. So that will then match from a rate perspective. The two platforms will be in sync as the recording. That's pretty well all we need to do. So if I bring up my Helix patch that I'm going to use, this is a very basic compressor, amp, cab, they're all default settings. I've put a delay on here just so I could demonstrate the left and right as I'm recording it. And I've left this as multi-output. Now you could set it for USB 1 and 2, but I've set it for multi-output. And the reason I do that is because then I can still hear it when I'm using the playback through the headphones on the Helix, which is where I'm getting my zero latency from. Because I'm listening to the sound coming out of the Helix, not through the Helix into across the USB and then back again, I got no latency. So that's where I'm getting that from. So again, very simple patch. So on Reaper, all I need to do is basically add some tracks. The first thing I need to do is I'm going to add a track by just double clicking over here, and it brings up a track. Now I'm going to call that left. I'm going to set that for a mono input. So there's my mono input 1. So there are 8 inputs available on the HX. Model input 1. Now I could also Command T on the Mac or Alt T on the Windows, and I can bring up another one. I'm going to set this one for input 2, and I'm going to call that right. So that's now going to record the left track and the right tracks out of Helix. What I can also then do is right click here and say insert a new track, and I'm going to call this stereo, and I'm going to set that as a stereo input as input 1 and 2. So now effectively I've got 3 tracks that I'm going to record the same instrument on, but I'm going to record 3 different mechanisms. And the last one I'm going to do is I'm going to create a clean or a DI track. So to do that one, I'm going to pick mono input 7, which is clean. So 1 and 2 is basically your left and right, and 7 is your dry. I'll put on the screen which the dry one is for the HX Stomp. So now I've got basically 4 tracks that I'm going to record. I'm going to record enable them by just clicking on the target. And as I play a note, you can see I've got signal coming up. Now you can see down the bottom I've got the mixer, so it's showing up both in the track listing and also in the mixer. So I'm getting, you know, for the wet signals I'm getting just over 12, and for the clean dry, which I've got no real control over, I'm getting that just under 16. Now the output on my HX, I've got that set to parity, so I may have to adjust that. Because I have no gain control knob, this is effectively now my gain control knob. So I'll play around with that as I get some figures. The first thing I'm going to do is record, and we'll see what that's like. So I can now stop that. And you can see I've got 4 waveforms, 2 mono ones, a stereo one, and then yet another mono one. And you can see the mono one at the bottom in the clean is fairly clean. Okay, so let's play back what we've got. Now it's a bit messy because the delay's in there, but again, I put the delay in there so you can hear the difference between the mono left and the mono right, and the stereo effect and the clean, right? So having the effect on there, you can clearly see where the clean is. Now, if I unmute the left one and play that, you can see the delay's funneling itself, right? Left, well, that was the left. The right is going to be fairly similar, all right? Now, when I play the stereo one, again, it's a bit messy, but you can hear it. The delay sounds better. So you see the stereo made it wider just instantly. Now, one of the advantages of Reaper is I didn't have to go and set up a stereo track and a whatever. I just added a track and then decided that I wanted it as stereo input, or I could have set it up to be MIDI input. That's as simple as that. Same track, just depends on the input you're using for it. That's so much easier. Now, if we like the clean one, again, this is the safety track or the DI track that you can use to reamp and do other stuff with. So here's how that sounds. So again, with that track, I can now go, you know what? I really didn't like that delay sound that I recorded, but I don't have to go back and play everything again. I can now reamp this through my Helix. I can use HX Native. I could be using Amplitude. I could use any other plugins that I want to manipulate that. I can copy it to create a separate, I can, whoops. Didn't mean to break that. I can just take this and I can copy the track, duplicate track. Now I have call it something different. Same track, same settings and everything, right? You've now gone and created your file, your track, you're loving it, you want to share it with your friends so they can add it in. The first thing you're looking at is what BPM you set it for. So I've set this at a standard of 120, so you've got to remember that. Now what I'm going to do is go to the Reaper settings and go to render file. Now I get a number of options here. The first is to just the master mix. So whatever's coming across everything, pandas left and right, as it's mixed will come out of the master mix, and that's when I'm going to hear it. Now I can do the entire project, or I can do specific sections of the project. I can pick a directory to go to. I've set mine up to default to a render directory. I'm going to give it a file name. In fact, if I save it first, it's got a file directory that defaults to. I'm going to give it a name, calling it Helix Reaper. Now what's handy is, because I've got 4 tracks, I want to make sure that the tracks get listed with their own names. So there's a wildcard function, and under project information, I put things like the title, the author, etc. So I'm going to put the track name. What I'm also going to do is put in the tempo and write BPM behind it. So what that's now going to do is it's going to give me the name of the file name will be Helix Reaper space left or right or stereo or clean with the tempo that I've recorded at. Now I'm not going to record the master mix, I'm going to record the stems. So each track will be captured. So I've selected 4 tracks. I'm going to download effectively or render 4 stems for the entire project into these file names. Now you can choose the format of WAV or or MP3. It doesn't really matter. MP3, it doesn't really matter. It's your preference how you're doing it. Most DAWs will import them as MP3s or WAV files. So again, it's pick a standard amongst your friends and then stick with that. That's pretty well all you need to do. I can then render 4 files. It goes through in 4 times real-time speed, and it's now rendered 4 tracks. Then I've got a folder called render files, and there's those 4 there. So you can see again the name, Helix Reaper clean 120 beat per minute, Helix left 120 beats per minute, etc., etc. So that's all that I needed to do to record it and be able to share it to my friends. Now, there's a whole bunch of other stuff you can do around editing and adding plugins and a whole bunch of stuff, but that's for a different video. This is the simplicity of using Reaper, and because I already had the Helix, I didn't need to have a second interface. Now, people watching closely will notice that the track names would have changed. That's because my monitors are connected to my Apogee interface, and I use that with the Helix as an optical connection. There's a video up above on how I do that. And that's because I want to do vocals as well, and my LT doesn't have a vocal channel. But apart from that, for the bass stuff itself, nothing wrong with using the Helix. So there you go. You don't have to break the bank. If you already have a Line 6 product, a HX Stomp, HX Edit, then you can record fairly complex multi-track bass tracks very simply and very cheaply. Again, Reaper, $60 US. There is a free version which doesn't actually expire, but it'll keep prompting you every time you log in. But for $60, why wouldn't you, right? And then your bass. Check out this one on how I use the Helix to control Reaper.